Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about current affairs for 13th and 14th June. Let's start with term of the day. So the term of the day is capital flight. Now, what is the meaning of capital flight? Let's understand. It's a term that refers to an event where investors pull capital out of an economy. So capital is flying out of India back to its domestic economy or its origin economy. For example, if there is capital investment which had happened before into India from the United States, now it is flying back to the United States, and this is called as capital flight. So out of an economy, the money is flowing out of an economy on a large scale. So capital flight term is used when the investors are pulling money out of an economy on a large scale by selling financial assets that they own. So whatever financial assets that they own that they had invested in India, they are selling those assets and pulling money out of the economy. Now, when does this occur? This occurs because of many reasons, but the umbrella reason is that when investors lose confidence in an economy. So whenever investors are starting or have started losing confidence in an economy because of multiple reasons, then capital flight starts happening. Now let's start with current affairs for 13th and 14th June. The first one is child laborers in India. So first one considers child laborers in India. Certain facts, very important facts for RBI exam. 33 million child laborers between the age of 5 to 18 years in India as per Census 2011 data. So Census 2011 data says that there are 33 million child laborers in India in the age group of 5 to 18 years and 10.13 million between the age group of 5 to 14 years. So it's important to remember both these facts. They can be asked in prelims of phase 1 as well as phase 2 of RBI. Not yet ratified Minimum Age Convention 1973 of ILO. So International Labour Organization's Minimum Age Convention 1973 has not yet been ratified by India. So it is important to remember this. World Day Against Child Labour, 12th June. It is observed on 12th June. Now, what all conventions have been ratified? So ILO Convention 138 and 182. So these two conventions, 138 and 182, on child labor have been recently ratified by India to fight against the menace and achieve the objective of child labor free nations. What are these conventions? Let's have a brief look at them. Convention 138 says it is regarding admission of age to employment. So admission of age to employment is the convention of 138. So what is the age group after which a person or a child can be employed in a country is considered under Convention 138. So in India, as per the amended act, so there is a new amended act, we'll be talking about that as well in the next slide. In that, India has said that from 14 to 18 years, children can be employed, but below 14 years, children can be employed only for family businesses and nothing else. Convention 182, this is regarding worst forms of child labor or child labor in hazardous industries. So it's important to remember these two conventions. They can be asked directly or indirectly in RBI exam. The next is Child Labor Amendment Act, as I said. So there are two important amendments that have been made. So children are under the age of 14 now allowed to work only in family businesses, and definition of adolescence between 14 to 18. So between 14 to 18, the definition of adolescence has been changed, and now they are not allowed to work in hazardous industries. Before, they were allowed to work in hazardous industries that was not properly regulated, but now in the age group of 14 to 18, not at all allowed to work in hazardous industries, but allowed to work in other industries. And children under 14, below 14, are allowed to work only in family businesses. Important to remember this. Let's come at the next one, factors impacting inflation. So there's a lot of talk about inflation. We'll be talking about the Taylor rule as well, very important. So what are the factors which have been pointed out in the newspaper on 13th and 14th June which impact inflation? Number one, GST implementation. So there's a short-term spike in some sectors because of GST implementation, because the tax rate increases and thus the inflation on those particular commodities or goods and services increase, resulting in an inflation. The next is farm loan waivers. So when there is a farm loan waiver, what happens? Farmers have more disposable income, and when they have more disposable income, they start increasing their consumption. When they start increasing their consumption, then what happens? there is inflation in the economy, or specifically in the rural economy, because when you consume more, you spend more, and when you spend and demand more, then inflation increases. Important to remember. Next is supply of food. So better monsoon, more supply, less prices. So the prices go down, inflation goes down when the supply of food increases. So this is reducing inflation. Next is RBI monetary policy. So whatever monetary policy RBI follows, either accommodative or neutral, has an impact on inflation as well. Let's talk about the next one, very important for phase 1 specifically, can be asked this year as well. What is CRM? CRM is cash recycling machine. So it's an advanced version of an ATM, and companies are trying to push for CRM in place of ATM because it is much more safe, it is much more advanced, and in an ATM you can only withdraw money. From an ATM you can only withdraw money, but in a CRM you can withdraw money and you can deposit money. You can do both the things. So the answer is cash recycling machine. Important to remember the full form. Let's look at the next one. The next one is Padho Pardesh scheme. So what does the Padho Pardesh scheme entitles students to? Number one, the purpose is to help students seek higher education abroad. Now, how does it do it, and what kind of students are included in Padho Pradesh scheme? Number one, interest subsidy to minority students. So minority students, students belonging to minority communities are included, and it helps students by providing interest subsidy. So these are the two important things to remember in Padho Pradesh scheme. The numbers are not very important because it has recently been released or implemented. Next is IRDA appointed R.K. Sharma as administrator of Sahara India Life Insurance Company. So because IRDAI, or Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority of India, which is the regulator for insurance sector, found out that there are certain problems with the way Sahara India Life Insurance Company Limited is carrying out its business, and therefore it has appointed R.K. Sharma as the administrator. Important to remember for phase 1 of the exam. Next is committee to examine misuse of free movement along Myanmar border. Very important for phase 1 as well as for phase 2. Reena Mitra. So this is the name of the committee head, which has been given the task of examining misuse of free movement along India-Myanmar border. Let's look at the next one. So this is a question, very important question, specifically for phase 2 ESI of RBI exam. There is a statement given and then there is a question here. Let's read the statement. The statement says, the paragraph says, agricultural distress is often viewed as a short-term phenomena in which farmers look for support from various quarters on account of being unable to get a gainful return due to price crash. So whenever there is an agricultural distress, there is a price crash, and therefore they want to have support from other quarters in order to fulfill their cost. Price crash, poor marketing facilities, rising credit burden, increasing cost of inputs, and frequent occurrence of natural calamities. So these are all the reasons which result in agricultural distress for farmers. Now let's have a look at the question. The question says, which of the following is not an effective measure to address farmers' concerns? So which of the following is not an effective measure to address farmers' concerns in case of an agricultural distress? Number one, providing access to institutional credit. So in this case, it talked about rising credit burden. And why is the credit burden rising consistently? Because they're taking money, or they have to take money from money lenders. A lot of farmers, small farmers specifically, have to take money from money lenders because they do not have access to institutional credit, or it is very difficult to get access to institutional or credit from banks, and therefore providing access to institutional credit is going to reduce the agricultural distress, and therefore it's an effective measure to address farmers' concerns. Next is providing better marketing facilities. Again, provided in the question itself, so it is also not an answer. Better irrigation, seeds and fertilizers. So rising cost of inputs, or cost of inputs includes irrigation, seeds and fertilizers. Therefore this is also correct. It's not an answer. Social safety like insurance. So whenever there are frequent occurrences like natural calamities, insurance provides support to farmers and take them out of agricultural distress, and therefore this is also not an answer. So the answer is E. Now what does E says? E says a higher MSP and loan waivers. Now what does loan waiver and MSP do? They provide short-term support. They provide very short-term support to farmers, which is also regressive in nature because it does not allow or it does not incentivize farmers to grow or to become more technologically advanced in the future. So, MSP and loan waivers is not an effective measure to address farmers' concerns. So, this is an answer. Now, you might be confused because government provides MSP and loan waivers on a large scale in order to take farmers out of distress, but has not been providing all these facilities. But now the Modi government is trying to change that. It is providing insurance, crop insurance to farmers. It is aimed at providing better irrigation seeds and fertilizers by promoting organic farming and promoting irrigation. It is providing better marketing facilities through ENAM, and institutional credit is being provided by forcing or by incentivizing banks to reach out to these farmers by starting the process of or the concept of payment banks. So these are all measures to provide more money to the farmers, to provide more to address the concerns of the farmers. But this one, the last one, is a short term measure which is more political in nature and less effective in reality. Let's have a look at the next one. The next one is very important, Taylor rule. This was given in Live Mint today, and a big article was being discussed on this. Now, the purpose of Taylor rule is to identify whether RBI should reduce or increase the policy rate. Now, policy rate here means repo rate in large number, repo rate. Sometimes the RBI considers reverse repo rate and other rates as policy rates, but majoritarily repo rate is considered as the policy rate. So the purpose of Taylor rule is to identify whether RBI should reduce or increase the policy rate. Now, what is the formula of Taylor rule? Taylor rule's formula says nominal interest rate is equal to real natural interest rate plus inflation rate plus 0.5%, that is the inflation gap, and plus 0.5%, that was the output gap. So this is the formula of nominal interest rate as per Taylor rule. You are required to only remember and mug up this formula because this can be asked in the exam, but they are not expected to get into details of Taylor rule. Taylor rule graph shows that there should be interest rate cuts. So RBI is actually not cutting interest rates right now, but the Taylor rule graph shows that there should be an interest rate cut in the near future. That's why it was in news in the morning. Let's look at the next one. The next one is CDSL, or Central Depository Services Limited, has decided to launch an IPO amounting to, what is the amount of IPO that has been decided to be launched by CDSL? The answer is 500 crore. Not 1000, not 200, not 10,000 crore. The answer is 500 crore. The next one is new CEO of GE or General Electric. The answer is 2, John Flannery. Jeff Immelt is the present CEO, who will be removed. Jeff Bezos is the CEO of Amazon, and Jack Welch was the CEO before Jeff Immelt, and therefore the answer is John Flannery. Let's look at the next one. What is sacrifice ratio? Another important economic term. Need to remember it. In order to reduce inflation, a cost is incurred in terms of loss of real output. So when the RBI is trying to reduce inflation, what it does is it reduces money supply in the economy. Where it reduces money supply in the economy through its monetary policy, then the output or production in the economy also goes down. When the production in the economy goes down, there is a loss of real output, and this is the definition of sacrifice ratio. So it tells us the amount of sacrifice in terms of real output that the economy has to make in order to reduce inflation. Authorized capital of ICICI Bank increased to 2500 crore, important for phase 1. And the next one is TMG Health has been acquired by which organization? Cognizant, important for phase 1 again. Let's look at the next one. Very important. A lot of students have been confused in this. The connection between rate cut and bond prices. So what is the connection between rate cut and bond prices? When there are hopes of a rate cut, let's look at the network or the connection. When there are hopes of a rate cut, so there are hopes that the rates are going to, or the policy rates are going to go down. What happens? The market yield on bonds is expected to fall. When the rates are expected to go down, the market yield also goes down, or it's expected to fall. Why? Because the rate cuts, when the rates are expected to go down, then the cost of acquiring certain funds or cost of cost of taking money from the market reduces, and therefore the market yield goes down, which is the interest rate which has to be paid. Because yield on bonds is a cost, and rate cut reduces cost of borrowing, therefore market yield goes down. Now you know that there is an inverse relation between market yield and bond price. So when market yield goes down, bond price goes up, and this is the connection between rate cut and bond prices. Next is, who is the chairperson of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, MS Sahu. Important to remember for phase 1 as well as phase 2. Next is entry norms for FPI. So SEBI, Securities and Exchange Board of India, has recently changed the norms of FPI, or has decided to change the norms of FPI in this month, and they are talking about it. Let's look at those norms which have been decided or which are in discussion to be changed. The SEBI capital markets regulator is planning to ease entry norms for overseas investors. So FPIs are foreign portfolio investors or overseas investors, by allowing, what are they going to do now? They are going to allow direct access to foreign portfolio investors. So direct access to foreign portfolio investors is going to be allowed from certain jurisdictions, from certain countries or economies. The move is expected to give a fillip to foreign investment in the country. What is the purpose of this? To increase foreign investment in the country, as it would end procedural delays faced by FPIs while registering in India. On the other hand, SEBI is likely to tighten offshore derivative instruments. So another decision which is pending, another talk which is going on, is to tighten the offshore derivative instruments and participatory notes regulations to make them more tight, so that money is not dumped into Indian economy, terrorist financing does not happen, money laundering does not happen, and round tripping does not happen. Important to remember all these terms: terrorist financing, round tripping, and money laundering. So these are the important terms that you need to remember that happen because of participatory notes. Important to remember. The announcements were likely to be made after SEBI's board meeting scheduled for June 21. So it's going to happen in this month itself. So we'll keep a track of what is happening in this area. The next is, SEBI allows options trading to commodity exchanges. So there can be a very direct question asked from this. SEBI has allowed options trading to commodity exchanges, and what are the regulations regarding that? The SEBI has issued a circular allowing commodity exchanges like MCX SX. So MCX SX is one of the biggest commodity exchanges in India, to launch options trading in commodities. Now they're allowed to launch options trading in commodities. Initially, an exchange can launch options in only one commodity, and the position limits for options will be double that of respective futures contract. So these are technical terms, you don't need to remember this, but this is to be remembered, that initially an exchange can launch options in only one commodity, and commodity exchanges are now allowed to launch options trading. Important to remember. The next one is Abhijeet Group fraud. It can be asked in phase 1. The CBI has arrested Manoj Jaiswal and Abhishek Jaiswal, promoters of a major mining company, Abhijeet Group. So they are promoters of a mining company. Important to remember, Abhijeet Group related to mining, along with the former DGM of Canara Bank. So Canara Bank is also involved. So important to remember this as well, for allegedly causing a loss of 290 crore to the bank. So the number is also important. So three things important here: Abhijeet Group fraud related to mining, Canara Bank, and 290 crore rupees of fraud. The next one is periodic labor force survey by MOSPI, or Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Very important to remember, this can be asked in phase 2 ESI this year itself. So the question is, or the statement is, earlier labor force survey was carried out every 5 years. Pehle kya hota tha? It used to be carried out every 5 years. The labor force survey is what we are talking about. Now it has been decided by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation to take labor force survey every quarter for urban areas and yearly for rural areas. So for urban areas, every quarter, and for rural areas, every year or yearly. Revision of base year of national accounts to 2017-18 from 2011-12. This is also important to remember. Another news item. So other than this, the news item is MOSPI has decided to revise base year of national accounts to 2017-18 from 2011-12. Very, very important to remember. A question can be asked this year itself. The next is these are all miscellaneous terms or miscellaneous news that you need to remember. These are all factual news. International Albinism Awareness Day celebrated or observed on June 13th. Next is Indian shooters Jeetu Rai and Hina Sidhu have clinched the gold medal in mixed team 10-meter air pistol at the International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup. Important to remember, this can be asked in phase 1. If not this year, then next year. Lewis Hamilton has won the 2017 Formula 1 Canadian Grand Prix tournament. So, Canadian Grand Prix has been won by Lewis Hamilton in 2017. The Punjab's government will start free mortuary van service for its citizens in the state. So, there can be a question as to which state is the first one to start free mortuary van service for its citizens. It is the Punjab government. The next is water conservation model project Jal Sanchay has been selected for National Awards of Excellence in the MG Nareka program. So the name of the project is Project Jal Sanchay. Important to remember again, India's first underwater metro tunnel to come up in Kolkata, West Bengal. Very important. It can be asked in phase 1 this year itself. So these are all current affairs related to 13th and 14th June. Tomorrow we'll be talking about current affairs for 15th June.